You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. I've got to start with Cardinals-Dodgers. Why couldn't the Yankees game be as exciting as that? Why couldn't the Yankees have given me an iconic moment? Like, I heard people say that Judge hitting the walk-off single on Sunday is an iconic moment. Maybe in a very broad sense of the word it is. It did get the Yankees into the postseason, but I feel like part of that hit's legacy is what the Yankees did afterwards, only scoring 2 runs, losing 6-2. That's not a great, iconic moment. The Chris Taylor home run? That's an iconic moment. We'll be talking about that for a while. It's right up there with the Edwin Encarnacion home run in 2016. It's right up there with Aaron Boone in 2003. It's right up there with Chris Chambliss in 1976. I mean, here's a guy in Taylor who wasn't even supposed to play. He didn't start. He came in because of a double switch. He had an absolutely terrible end to the regular season. From September 1st on, he hit just 121. He had a 212 on base percentage. If you were to tell me that a Dodgers hitter was gonna hit a walk-off home run yesterday, I would have said, okay. Justin Turner got into one. Granted, he had a home run that tied the game, but it wasn't a walk-off. Will Smith got a hold of one. Mookie Betts got a hold of one. A.J. Pollock, Corey Seager. I could have even accepted Cody Bellinger. Chris Taylor? I wouldn't have believed. No way is Chris Taylor going to be the hero. But that's what happens in the postseason. More often than not, the iconic moments come from players that you don't expect. Aaron Boone in 2003. Come on, no one expected that. Bill Mazeroski hitting a walk-off home run in 1960. The guy was around for 17 seasons. He only had 138 home runs. Francisco Cabrera with the big RBI single to send the Braves to the World Series in 92. The guy was out of baseball a year later. That's what's great about the postseason. You have these unsung guys carving their name into baseball history. You really don't get that in the other sports. You definitely don't get it in basketball. Hockey, you have Bob Nystrom, that may be it. Football, okay, sometimes you'll get a big performance from a guy like Desmond Howard or Malcolm Smith. And that guy will win Super Bowl MVP, but more often than not, it's a quarterback. That's the difference maker. It's not some guy coming in off the bench and making a huge difference. For every Max McGee and David Tyree, there's a Tom Brady and a Joe Montana. Yes, there are unsung heroes, but more often than not, it's the quarterback. There are some moments where you'll always remember where you were when they happened. I don't know if the Taylor home run is up there. Let's put it this way. It's not there yet, because if the Dodgers lose to the Giants in the NLDS, it certainly takes some of the air out of the home run. But if the Dodgers go on to win the pennant, or even win the World Series, we'll remember where we were for the Taylor home run. And hopefully we'll remember how great that game was. There are some moments where you're almost glad that your team didn't participate. If I was a Cardinals fan or a Dodgers fan last night, my heart would have been doing backflips, my stomach would have been in knots. Oh, I would have been a wreck. At least on Tuesday, Garrett Cole gave up a 2-run home run in the first inning. And he got the sense that things weren't going to go the Yankees' way, the way that they were approaching Ubaldo. Make no mistake about it, either team could have won this game. The Cardinals will be kicking themselves over this loss. The Cardinals went 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. You can't do that and expect to win, especially in the playoffs. I mean, think about how the Cardinals scored their only run of the game. It was a wild pitch by Max Scherzer. I mean, after that, you've got runners on the corners, 2 men out, and a future Hall of Famer in Yadier Molina at bat. I mean, let me tell you, I was in Yankee Stadium in 2017 when Luis Severino gave up 3 runs through a third of an inning. I know that if you land a big punch in the top of the first inning, it can get the crowd out of the game. Yadier Molina had a big opportunity to make it 2-0, 3-0, or 4-0, depending on what happened. Instead, he flies out to Cody Bellinger. I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm picking on Molina. He wasn't the only Cardinal who no-showed in this game. Tyler O'Neill left 6 guys on base. Nolan Arenado stranded 5. Dylan Carlson stranded 4. Those are your 3, 4, 5 hitters. Stranding a total of 15 guys on base. When the heart of the order combines for just 1 for 12 with 15 guys left on base, you're not going to win. I mean, give the Cardinals pitching a ton of credit for keeping them in this game. But at the end of the day, great pitching is all well and good. That's usually what wins you a game in the postseason, but you still need to score. You can't score just 1 run and expect to win. I mean, not for nothing, but the Dodgers pitching was absolutely perfect. There were a bunch of moments in this game where the Cardinals really could have blown the doors off Dodger Stadium. Obviously, you have the first inning. Max Scherzer gets into a little bit of trouble in the fifth inning. Runners on first and second, nobody out. He strikes out Tyler O'Neill. Then Dave Roberts makes the move to the bullpen. Joe Kelly comes in. Biggest moment of the game right here. If it works, Roberts a genius. If it doesn't, why'd you pull Scherzer too early? Scherzer got Nolan Arenado to ground out. Justin Turner tagged out Tommy Edman. Edman doesn't allow himself to get tagged out easily. He sort of gets into a rundown a little bit. He stayed out of the double play. Then a wild pitch moves Goldschmidt over to third. You've got runners on the corners, 2 men out here for Dylan Carlson. And Kelly strikes him out. You're tied at 1 at this point. You drive the runner in from third, you take the lead. Top of the 7th. Runner on second, 2 men out. Nolan Arenado pops out in foul ground. Top of the 8th. You get a leadoff single from Carlson. You can't move him over, not even a base. Top of the 9th. Runner on second, 1 man out. Paul Goldschmidt and Tyler O'Neill strike out. The Dodgers bullpen stepped up when it really needed to. Yes, they did allow traffic on the base paths. I'll give you that. But as long as you're able to navigate through that traffic, I don't care. If you're getting 14 outs and you're only giving up 2 singles in between, you're doing something right. The unsung heroes of this game were Joe Kelly, Brusdar Graterol, Blake Trinan, Corey Knebel, and Kenley Jansen. Now I will say this. I heard some people criticizing Mike Schilt for leaving Adam Wainwright in to pitch the 6th inning. If you'll recall, Harrison Bader got hit on the first pitch that he saw from Graterol. So that put Bader on first with 2 men out. Graterol had gotten through Yadier Molina and Edmundo Sosa very easily. He needed only 3 pitches to deal with those 2 guys. He hits Bader on the first pitch. That brings up Wainwright. So the theory is, if you pinch hit for Wainwright there, you've got a chance to drive the runner in. The thing is, though, Wainwright had just pitched a 1-2-3 inning in the bottom of the 5th. He really only made 1 bad pitch all night. That was the home run to Turner. The thing with Wainwright is, yes, he'll hang curveballs. He's done that his whole career, but they have such a big break, and he's so good with his deception that it's impossible to swing at this big meatball that's coming down the heart of the plate. So yeah, Wainwright was hanging curveballs, but only one Dodgers hitter really made noise against Wainwright. That was Turner. He put a good swing on the ball. Give him credit. So you've got Wainwright dealing. This guy's going to have his number retired. He was one of the best pitchers in the National League this year. He's going to get Hall of Fame votes. I'm not saying he should be in, but he will get votes. You can't pinch hit for him there. A runner on first, 2 men out? If it's bases loaded, sure, pinch hit for him. Runners on second and third, 1 man out, pinch hit for him. Runners on first and third, 1 man out, pinch hit for him. Runner on third, 2 men out, pinch hit for him. I'm okay with that. A runner on first, 2 men out, no. You don't pinch hit for Wainwright there. That was the right decision by Mike Shildt. You want to come back at me with Wainwright only got 1 more out after that? You're right, but realize Luis Garcia was able to get out of the bottom of the 6th. I don't want to hear that Shildt mismanaged that with Wainwright. He didn't. The only thing that you could maybe get on Shildt for, and I like Shildt a lot, would love him on the Yankees, but the only thing that you could maybe get on him for is bringing in TJ McFarland to pitch the 9th inning as opposed to going straight to Alex Reyes. But even then, though, I understand the logic behind saving your closer until you have a lead. Even though it's a do-or-die situation at that point. Bottom of the 9th, you gotta send the game into extras. The thing is, though, TJ McFarland had a really good year this year. He went 4-1 with a 2.56 ERA. He was a really, really good lefty out of that bullpen. Him and Genesis Cabrera had good years in terms of lefties coming out of the Cardinals bullpen. Now, granted, McFarland did not look sharp. He gave up a loud fly out to Albert Pujols to deep center field. And the same thing happened with Steven Souza Jr. And then he walked Cody Bellinger, that brought Taylor to the plate, and that's when Shildt went to his closer. But I do understand trusting one of your really good relievers, trying to buy an extra inning. And at the end of the day, Shildt did lose with his big guns. Like I said, McFarland had a really good year this year, and Alex Reyes was the pitcher who gave up the home run to Taylor. This wasn't anything like 2016, where you have Zach Britton twiddling his thumbs in the bullpen. You go to Ubaldo Jimenez instead of Britton. If you'll recall, that was the year that Britton was just lights out. He had a .54 ERA. He led the American League in saves with 47. He made his 2nd straight All-Star team that year. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting, 11th in MVP voting. He was excellent that year. But no, let's go to Ubaldo Jimenez. A guy who went 8-12 with a 5.44 ERA instead of our superstar closer. It's one thing if you're going to forego the closer for a good pitcher. I mean, if McFarland can get Bellinger out, we're not having this conversation. A lefty-on-lefty matchup? Yeah, McFarland should have gotten Bellinger out there. He didn't. That's a bad job by McFarland. But I understood the decision to put him in and save your closer for when you have the lead. Also, again, Reyes was the one who gave up the home run to Taylor. We'll never know what would have happened if McFarland had gotten Bellinger out. But I really didn't have a problem with how Schilt managed this game. This was nothing like Showalter in 2016. Mike Schilt, great manager. Would love him on the Yankees. Buck Showalter, terrible manager. If he goes back to the Yankees, we're going to have a major problem. Alright, now it's time to preview the ALDSs. Since this is the start of a series and not a one-game playoff, I'm not going to focus on the pitching matchup. I'll give you an overview of the teams. I'll start with White Sox Astros. The White Sox are the team that every Yankees fan should be rooting for in the American League. You're not going to root for the Red Sox because they're the Red Sox. You're not going to root for the Rays because they play in the same division as the Yankees. And you're not going to root for the Astros because they're the Astros. That leaves the White Sox. Yes, the team that beat the Yankees in the Field of Dreams game, if the Yankees win that game or any other game that they lost in heartbreaking fashion, too many to count, the wild card game is in Yankee Stadium, and God only knows what happens, but after that loss, the Yankees started the 13-game win streak. So I'm rooting for the White Sox in the American League. In the National League, I really don't care. Maybe the Braves, because I hate the Mets. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Maybe the Dodgers, because my uncle's a Dodgers fan, and my cousin's a Dodgers fan. But I really don't have a rooting interest. This is a really good White Sox team. You remember when the White Sox got off to a slow start? They went 14-11 in April. They started the season 16-13, and there were rumors that Tony La Russa was going to be one and done. He couldn't connect with this new generation of players. Yeah, how foolish do those people look now? The White Sox went on to win 93 games. In fact, the White Sox won their division by the greatest margin out of all the division winners this year. The Rays won the AL East by 8 games. The Astros won the AL West by 5 games. The Braves won the NL East by 6.5 games. In case you're wondering why there's a half a game there, a Braves-Rockies game in, I think, the middle of September that was set to be in Denver got rained out, and they just decided not to make it up because it was meaningless to both teams. The Brewers won the NL Central by 5 games, and the Giants won the NL West by 1 game. The White Sox won the AL Central by 13 games. After that slow start, they really dominated that division. Jose Abreu had another great season. Obviously, he won the MVP last year, a little bit of an asterisk on that. 60-game season, but he'll get some votes this year. He won't win it, but he'll get some votes. He had 261 with 30 home runs and 117 RBIs. Tim Anderson hit 309. Yoan Moncada had a good year. Luis Robert had a really good year, although granted, he only played in 68 games. But when he was healthy, he dominated. He hit 338 with 13 home runs and 43 RBIs. Yasmani Grandal hit 23 home runs. That's excellent from the catcher position. The White Sox have a pretty darn good lineup. But you look at their pitching, that's what's really carried them all year. They were second in the American League in ERA. They led the American League in hits allowed, runs allowed, earned runs allowed, and strikeouts. They were second in home runs allowed. They were great. Lucas Giolito had a really good season. So did Dylan Cease. So did Lance Lynn. So did Carlos Rodon. La Russa already announced that Lynn is going to get the start today and Giolito's going to get the start tomorrow. So it'll be very interesting to see who starts Game 3. Do you start Cease or do you start Rodon? I'd go with Rodon. I'd throw a lefty in there. Give the Astros a different look. The White Sox bullpen is really good. Liam Hendricks had 38 saves. That led the American League. Michael Kopech, after failing to stay healthy as a starter, looks like he's turning into a really good reliever. Jose Ruiz is very underrated. Aaron Bummer and Garrett Crochet are two very good lefties. You know, it's funny. The White Sox traded for two Cubs relievers at the deadline. They traded for Craig Kimbrell and Ryan Tepera. Tepera was everything that the White Sox wanted Kimbrell to be. Kimbrell did not pitch well for the White Sox. He went 2-2 with a 5.09 ERA. Tepera had a 2.5 ERA. If I'm La Russa, I'm not deploying Kimbrell in a high-leverage situation. You'd think that would bother me, but as I just explained, the White Sox have a really good bullpen. Meanwhile, you look at the Astros, they have the usual suspects. To paraphrase the great Claude Rains from Casablanca, it's Gurriel, it's Altuve, it's Correa, it's Bregman, he's healthy again. It's Brantley, it's Tucker, it's Alvarez. You have no idea how much it ticks me off to see the Houston Astros in the playoffs again. I mean, I'm not a big Dusty Baker fan. I just don't like the fact that his teams always blow it in the playoffs. In 2002, they were up 3-2. They had destroyed the Angels in Game 5. Then they choked Game 6 away, and they only scored 1 run in Game 7. In 2003, you've got the Steve Bartman incident. With the Reds, Baker never won a playoff series. Same thing with the Nationals. Now he's with the Astros, and you know what? He was really the perfect guy for that job. Taking over after the sign-stealing thing. There is something to be said about Dusty Baker being the first manager in baseball history to win a division title with 5 different teams. That's impressive. I'll give him credit. I respect Baker. I don't think he's great. You've got to win a World Series to be considered a great manager. But he's very, very good. The thing that would scare me if I was an Astros fan is their pitching. I am not crazy about the Astros pitching staff. You have really good pitchers in that rotation. Lance McCullers, Framber Valdez, Zach Greinke, Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia. Those guys are good pitchers. None of them are great. I mean, maybe you wouldn't call a guy like Lynn or Rodon great, but they did have great years. Lynn was an all-star. Same thing with Rodon. None of the Astros starters were. I mean, the Astros have a good four-headed monster in their bullpen. I can see it now. The starter's only going to be asked to go 5 innings. Then it's going to be some combination of Kendall Graveman, Christian Javier, and Ryan Stanek in the 6th to 8th innings, and then Ryan Presley in the 9th. And that's going to be done over and over and over again if the Astros have the lead. But if you do that, you run the risk of tiring these relievers out. I mean, I think this will be a very competitive series. It's going to be easy for me to get behind because I'm going to be rooting like hell for the White Sox. But I could really see this series going 5 games. And I'll say that the White Sox win Game 5 in Minute Maid Park. Moving on now to Red Sox Rays. What should make you feel really excited as a Sox fan is you just saw your team knock Garrett Cole out after 2 innings. And you got to Chad Green also. Granted, Green is overrated, but still, he's not terrible. He's not great, but he's not terrible. I mean, if you did what you did against Cole and Green, what are you going to do against guys like Shane McClanahan and Shane Baz? I mean, McClanahan had a good year, but he's not great. He went 10-6 with a 3.43 ERA. That's good, but he's not a great pitcher. And Shane Baz has only made 3 major league starts. He's starting Game 2. The Rays do not have good starting pitching. You got to great starting pitching in Garrett Cole. If you did that against Cole, what are you going to do against the Shanes? And you've got J.D. Martinez coming back. This does set up well for the Red Sox. I mean, that's what I'm really going to be focusing on here. Can these teams take advantage of the subpar starting pitching that they're going to face? Yes, the Red Sox have Sale and Eovaldi, but Eduardo Rodriguez didn't have that good a season. Neither did Nick Pivetta. Neither did Garrett Richards. Neither did Martin Perez. And the Red Sox bullpen isn't great, despite how the Yankees made them look. Meanwhile, you look at the Rays, you know they're going to use at least one opener in this series. Maybe it won't be designed that way, but you know that Kevin Cash is going to have a quick hook. You'd think he'd learn from what happened last year, but given how Cash and the Rays do things, I think they will have a quick hook. They'll say, this is what the analytics said, so we're going to follow it. For their sake, I hope I'm wrong, but I could really see Cash making another stupid decision like that. I mean, the Rays have the bullpen necessary to go like 6 or 7 innings. You think about guys like Andrew Kittredge, Colin McHugh, Pete Fairbanks, Drew Rasmussen, J.P. Fireisen, former Yankee, etc., etc. Those guys are all really good pitchers. Like, it wouldn't stun me if the Rays had a game where their bullpen got, like, 21 outs or something like that. So, can this Red Sox offense that finished 3rd in the American League in batting average, 4th in on-base percentage, and 3rd in hits, take advantage of suspect Rays starting pitching and a bullpen that runs the risk of being run into the ground? And on the flip side of that coin, can the Rays, a team that finished just 7th in batting average in the American League and 6th in hits, they were 3rd in home runs, give them credit, but 7th in batting average and 6th in on-base percentage doesn't work for me. Can that team take advantage of suspect Red Sox pitching? That's what you need to key in on here. Realistically, these should be high-scoring games. I'm not talking like 10-9 games or 13-12 games or something like that. But the over-under on this game is 8. Realistically, it should be over. Now, I trust the Red Sox lineup more than I trust the Rays lineup, but I trust the Rays bullpen more than I trust the Red Sox bullpen. I think we're going to see at least 1 or 2 games where the Red Sox bullpen blows it in the late innings. And the Rays bullpen will shut the door. I think the Rays are the better team. They're more evenly matched than you think they are, but the Rays are better. So I'll go Tampa in 4. I'll close this show out with some NFL Valk talk. Specifically on tonight's game between the Rams and the Seahawks. This is a Rams team that has looked great, with the exception of the Cardinals game. Matthew Stafford has been everything that Rams fans hoped he would be. You gave up an arm and a leg to get him and to move on from Jared Goff's contract. So he better produce, and he has. The Rams have put up at least 20 points in every game this year. Stafford has thrown for at least 270 yards in every game this year. He's completed just over 68% of his passes, for 1,222 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He looks really good. The way that the Rams' skill position group has shaken out, though, has been kind of interesting. I thought that Darrell Henderson and Sonny Michel would be like a 1A, 1B type setup. Instead, it's really been a 1-2 with Henderson and Michel. Cooper Kupp has really dominated in terms of being Stafford's go-to guy. Kupp has 30 catches this year. No other Ram has more than 15. Since 2019, it's been Kupp and Woods, Kupp and Woods, Kupp and Woods. Now it's Kupp, ... and Woods, with Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson sprinkled in for good measure. It's very interesting to me how that's shaken out. One thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is how great, and I mean great, the Rams O-line has been this year. Through the first quarter of the season or so, the Rams O-line has probably been the best in football. Andrew Whitworth, David Edwards, Brian Allen, Austin Corbett, and Rob Havenstein have been absolutely fantastic. All of them have Pro Football Focus grades of over 74, except for Corbett, whose grade is 68.7. Let me tell you, 68.7 is still pretty darn good. The weakness on the Rams is their defense. You score at least 20 points a game, you should expect to win every game. They lost to the Cardinals because they gave up 37 points. Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are still great players. Donald could win another Defensive Player of the Year. If he wins another one, he'll hold the record for most AP Defensive Player of the Year awards. Right now he's tied with Lawrence Taylor and J.J. Watt at 3 apiece. It wouldn't surprise me if Donald won another Defensive Player of the Year. Let me tell you, and Jalen Ramsey is still a great corner. The thing is, though, once you get past them, it kind of falls off a little bit. Leonard Floyd is good. He's not great. Same thing with Darius Williams. Same thing with Kenny Young. Same thing with David Long Jr. I'd like for some of these other Rams defenders to show up, because Donald and Ramsey can't do everything by themselves. When you look at the Seahawks, they're kind of disappointing. Russell Wilson is still great. He's completed 72.5% of his passes for 1,044 yards and 9 touchdowns. He hasn't thrown an interception all year. But Chris Carson hasn't been all that impressive. He's averaging just 4.3 yards per carry. I like Carson. I do expect him to be better than that. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are great. No complaints there. But they can only produce if Wilson is given time by his O-line. If you'll remember, last offseason there were rumors that he wanted out of Seattle because of John Schneider's inability to build a consistently good O-line around him. We haven't heard anything like that this year, but the Seahawks O-line is still really bad. They only have one offensive lineman with a Pro Football Focus grade over 70. That's Dwayne Brown. Cedric Abreu and Brandon Shell are over 68. That's good, but neither one of them have played a lot. Abreu's only gotten into one game, and Shell missed weeks 3 and 4 with an injury. Speaking of injuries, I will bring this up. Chris Carson is questionable for this game. He didn't practice yesterday. That doesn't bode well for his availability. I think he'll try to gut it out. It wouldn't stun me if he didn't play, but I think he'll try to convince Pete Carroll to let him play. If he doesn't play, you'll see a lot of Alex Collins. And Collins isn't a bad running back. Almost had a 1,000-yard season for the Ravens in 2017. It's just a bad offensive line. It really is. Defensively, the Seahawks are solid. They're not great. They're not terrible. They still have Bobby Wagner, who's really, really good. DJ Reed is having a good year. Quandre Diggs is having a good year. They have guys like Al Woods, Alton Robinson, and Darrell Taylor that are having good years. The Seahawks defense is solid. No superstars on that defense anymore. Yes, I'm not counting Jamal Adams as a superstar. I wouldn't even count him as having a good year. He doesn't have a sack this year. If he's not going to get sacks, what good is he? He's really not a good cover safety. This year he has a 62.8 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. His coverage grade is 58.4. Like I said, the Seahawks defense is just solid. The Rams have the edge on defense. The Rams have the edge on offense. I'm really disappointed in the Seahawks team this year. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not as good as I thought it would be. I've got to go with the Rams tonight. Tomorrow, you're going to get an interview that I did with John Vandemore. He was Stanford's sailing coach at the time that Operation Varsity Blues was underway. He wrote a book called Rigged Justice. I'll be talking to him about that. I only had 10 minutes with him, so the interview's a little different. I tried to get more, but hey, he's a highly sought-after interviewee, as you can well understand. It's a good interview. I think you'll like it. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.